This is the backcountry like you've never seen it before. Summit County is home to 4 backcountry ski cabins as part of the Summit Huts system. They're spread all across the county, from the south side of Breckenridge to just outside of Copper Mountain, and they give skiers, snowboarders, and everyone in between a taste of true wilderness. But they aren't without their creature comforts. The 2 largest even have wood-burning saunas, and each one is a quick skin trip away from classic ski terrain. You'll find fresh lines almost every time. We talk with Summit Hut's Executive Director Mike Zobbe about the amenities and more at all 4 cabins, and then he gives us the inside scoop on a new 5th hut, the Sisters Cabin. It's been in the works for at least a decade and should be ready for skiers by December 2018. Phil Lindeman, Krystal 93 News Director, and I'm in the studio today with Mike Zobbe, Executive Director for Summit Huts. Mike, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, of course. And the big news from Summit Huts this year, you guys have a brand new hut after about a decade of planning. So tell me about Sisters Hut. How did it all, or Sisters Cabin?
Yeah, Sisters Cabin. Well, Sisters Cabin, as you mentioned, has been in the works for, depending, you can choose any number of starting places, but we like to say it's been about 10 years total, the entire process, before we actually have come to this point where we have funders who are willing to put up the actual $1 million that it's going to take to build the Sisters Cabin up on the the northeast side of Bald Mountain. Okay,
great. And tell me about the funding then. Like you said, it finally came together, and that was kind of the spark that it needed.
Yeah, that's, we can do all the planning, all the Forest Service process and everything else, but it doesn't matter if we can't afford to build it. And Summit Huts, being a small nonprofit with basically 2 employees, was definitely not able to put up a $1 million finance cabin. So we had been in touch with the Sue and Don Sturm and the Sturm Family Foundation early in this process, and with all the twists and turns that the process took, with the Forest Service and all the various other government agencies and public comment and so forth, we sort of had to let them kind of go to the sidelines. And then now that we had all the approvals in place, we approached them again, and they have been very excited to be involved with this project.
Still interested. Why were they a good fit for this project? Backcountry, is that something that's kind of a, runs
Sure.
in the
Yeah,
foundation?
sure. Well, this is a tribute to Sue Sturm's friends, women friends, who she's been doing hut trips with for years and years in general. I think it's basically it's the sisterhood in general and her sister friends in particular.
Great, very cool. And there you go, the Sisters Cabin.
Yep, exactly.
Love it. Now that cabin, give me a brief explanation of the timeline. So construction obviously can't get started until the snow melts.
Correct. Yeah, and we're looking at, obviously it's going to be varied, but sometime in the middle of June to start groundbreaking on the cabin itself. We actually started trail construction to the hut last fall.
About how far is it? It leaves out of what, the French Gulch trailhead?
Yeah, there will actually be an entirely new parking lot just for hut customers constructed near the Sally Barber trailhead. We're doing that so we don't impact the existing parking, and also overnight parking is currently not permitted on county trailheads. So we'll be building our own parking lot there near the French Gulch trailhead. They'll go up Sally Barber, then they'll go up the Nightmare on Baldy trail, and then we will construct a new trail above the Nightmare on Baldy trail. There's actually going to be a Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado project to construct that trail in cooperation with Summit County and the town of Breckenridge Open Space to build a new trail. And that trail will serve not only as access for the hut guests, but it will also serve as a mountain biking and foot trail for the general public in the summertime.
Very cool. So new hut means some new trail options there.
Yeah,
in
it's kind of cool.
Cool, in the Sally Barber area. Great. And then finally, Sisters Cabin, what's the size? How big is this place going to be? What's its
The living space is about 2,090 square feet. It'll sleep 14 people. It'll have a small hut master's quarters that will sleep 2 people, and that's for the maintenance staff and occasional volunteers.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to getting out there. And like you were saying, hopefully should be able to take reservations for next season?
Yeah, we won't actually start taking reservations until we know that it's going to be finished.
Until you know you have a finished
cabin.
Yeah, and
we're scheduled to be finished in the middle of October of 2018, but we're dealing with a construction site of 11,440 feet. So, we're not going to count our huts until they're built.
True. Well, great. Well, looking forward to the Sisters Cabin when it comes online, but also wanted to talk about the rest of the Summit Huts system. So give me a brief bird's eye view of Summit Huts, how many huts we have, and how they can be accessed by folks who live right here in town.
Sure. Well, the first cabin that we built, and it was finished in 1990, was Janet's Cabin, and that's approximately 5.5 miles southwest of Copper Mountain, just right off the Colorado Trail at the base of Searle Pass. Francie's Cabin was completed in 1995, and that is just south of the Breckenridge ski area in the Krystal Lakes drainage. So you access that either via the Burro Trail. They're out of the Beaver Run area at Breckenridge, or the Spruce Creek Trailhead just above Blue River. And then the third and fourth huts that we currently operate is the section house on top of Boreas Pass. And that actually is a historic restoration, and it is owned by the Forest Service, but Summit Huts operates it under kind of a concessionaire's agreement. And then Ken's Cabin, which is a small satellite cabin to the section house, is right next door to the section house, and that sleeps a total of 3 people.
Great. So a little bit of everything, and kind of in all corners of the county right now.
Yeah. The original Summit Huts master plan envisioned 5 to 7 cabins. Basically, the whole idea was that you'd be able to go from, say, Montezuma to Breckenridge or Breckenridge to Copper Mountain using huts.
That was what my next big question was. So the master plan and the hut system in general, the idea behind it is that you could travel from one to the other. I remember, the 10th Mountain Division, they've got their own system that's also, kind of the Aspen area, Vail area,
right,
and all that. What do you think people really enjoy about having, this opportunity to kind of, travel remotely away from highways, ski travel only from hut to hut?
Yeah, I like to say that the logbook entries are our best advertising for the huts. And what most people talk about in our logbooks, and what most of the many people that I talk to when I'm up at the huts, that is it just kind of what you talked about. It's getting away from all the crowds and getting back to a little bit simpler form of existence, I guess you could say, where you don't have running water and that sort of thing. So, and get out and be able to experience the backcountry. Either, originally it was for skiing, but also, snowshoeing's become very popular, and have a comfortable place to go to. Lots of people love the winter backcountry, but they don't necessarily like the idea of tents or snow caves.
I mean, I can't blame them right there. Tent camping in the winter is probably one of my least favorite activities. Although a Quincy, you can't beat a Quincy sometimes.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, these huts, they're a nice place to go to if you're traveling, but they are rustic. What are the amenities that people can find at most of the huts? And I know that they change from hut to hut, but in general,
sure.
What can you find?
The basic amenities are the huts will supply firewood for a wood-burning stove for heat. Almost all the huts have photovoltaic electric lights. They supply toilets in one form or another. The Sisters Cabin will have indoor composting toilets, which Janet's and Francie's Cabin also have, but in the very least, they provide an outhouse. They provide a kitchen with all the pots and pans and silverware and everything that you need. We'll supply beds. You need to bring your own sleeping bag. Most of the beds have sheets and pillowcases that get changed on a, that schedule varies, but, a comfortable place to hang out.
Okay. Who's doing all the work, changing those sheets, getting those linens?
Yeah, well, Summit Huts has a core of about 7 hut masters that are professionals that get paid, and then also we rely on volunteers to do a lot of the mid-season cleaning and stocking firewood and that sort of thing. So with Summit Huts, we have weekly trips to our huts by hut masters, and they take care of all the routine maintenance and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, when somebody does decide to go travel, like you said, you got hut masters taking care of maintenance and volunteers taking care of stuff too. Talk about courtesy. If somebody travels to a hut, how can they make sure they're leaving it the way that they arrived?
Sure. And one of the unique things about the hut experience is that folks have to be self-reliant, and there aren't people looking over their shoulder. So the guests also have a responsibility, and that's to leave the hut as clean or cleaner that they found it. It is to get along with other people, because unless you've rented the entire hut yourself, you might be sharing it with another group of people or two. And so there's just, basic courtesy that people need to follow as far as interacting with other people. And then also people need to be totally self-sufficient. So as far as backcountry travel, we always say that the huts, the travel routes in and out of the huts themselves have been laid out to avoid avalanche danger, but nonetheless, people should have at least a basic understanding of what avalanche terrain is and how to avoid it, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, like you said, this is not the Hilton. It's not a weekend excursion.
It is still a backcountry experience, and you still need to have, a good head on your shoulders. It's potentially, you could get yourself into trouble if you made, serious mistakes.
True. Talking again about, speaking about, once we get out to the huts, like you said, snowshoeing is getting very popular, but splitboarding, skiing are the main uses for it. Let's talk about best cabins or best huts for no matter what you want to do. So say it's your first time doing a hut. What would you suggest? Which hut would you suggest? And, what kind of terrain can people find there?
Sure. Well, with our huts, with Summit Huts Association, currently Francie's Cabin is the easiest cabin to get to. It is very popular with beginners and folks with kids and that sort of things. But also, the terrain around Francie's Cabin also has a lot of very advanced terrain. So Francie's Cabin is also great for spring skiing, ski mountaineering, and that sort of thing. What we have found is a lot of folks generally don't get very far from the huts. Not everybody's adventurous, and many folks just like to come and hang out with their friends and chill and enjoy the scenery rather than go out and be adventurous and explore the terrain.
Okay, but like you were saying, Francie's one of the easier ones, and kids are more than welcome at the huts if they can hack it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I have found that kids have tons of energy. They just have to be focused. And a lot of, something that's really interesting that we're starting to see now that the huts system's been around for, 25, 30 years, is that we're starting to see the third generation of hut goers. And I've seen this several times, is where you have the grandparents who started doing hut trips in their 30s or 40s, and they took their kids, and now their kids are having their kids. So I've seen multiple generations up at the huts, and it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's one of those, like you were saying, it's a shared experience thing. It's a great thing for groups of people. Like I've known bachelor parties or
that happens too, or bachelorette parties.
Yeah, exactly. Or family reunions and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you guys see, I'm sure, plenty of groups. What's the farthest ranging group that you get? I'm sure people will come from across the world sometimes to use the huts.
Yeah, and our system is different from what they have in most European areas, where they have hut keepers who serve meals and offer refreshments and that sort of thing.
Cocoa and stuff.
Yeah, and so the American model is much more self-sufficient. Although there are some fully catered hut experiences out there, they're mostly on private land. But it really varies. When we poll, we do surveys of our customer base, and probably 80% of them are from Colorado and the Front Range, but we do have people from all over the United States, and we do have people, from all over the world. So, which is pretty cool. Sometimes there'll be Japanese, entries into the logbooks and that sort of thing.
Like you said, reading those logbooks is one of the best parts of the job, almost.
Yeah, it sure is.
Now, Francie's great place for beginners, first-time hut users, kids, all of those. How about somebody who might want a little bit more rugged experience or want to get to the terrain that is going to be pretty serious, pretty steep, and pretty fun?
Sure. Once again, there's a lot of steep terrain around Francie's Cabin. It's just not particularly safe from an avalanche point of view, so you better know what you're going to do. Janet's Cabin has a huge variety of terrain in the immediate area right around the hut. Some of it's low angle enough to not be an avalanche hazard, and some of it is. You can go from drainage to drainage. It's a pretty amazing place for skiing and for winter powder skiing.
Yeah, and that's you were saying that is on kind of the south side of Breckenridge? So
no, Janet's Cabin is southwest of Copper Mountain.
Oh, southwest of Copper. That's right. So you're getting some of that terrain that people are used to in Copper, like the Resolution Bowl and some nice glades. And,
there's all kinds of... I like to say you can almost always find good snow somewhere at Janet's Cabin.
Good advice. A final question for you then. When it comes to the huts, how can people reserve a trip? I know that you got to think ahead for sure.
Sure. Yeah, and one of the reasons that we decided to go ahead to build the Sisters Cabin is that Summit Huts has, for quite a few years, been close to its maximum capacity. So that means that reservations can be difficult to come by, especially if you want to do weekends during peak season, which is right now, February and March. But the best thing you can do is go to our website, which is summithuts.org, one word, summithuts.org, and you can click on a hut availability link, and that can tell you what's available in hut space. If you have a small group, it's probably easier to get midweek reservations. And then it's kind of like the ski area season. April really slows down. There's a lot more availability, but there's still great snow generally that time of year. But to actually do the reservations, you can do it online, or you can call the 10th Mountain Association in Aspen. And the 10th Mountain Association actually, while we are two separate organizations, the 10th and Summit Huts Association, the 10th Mountain does act as our reservation agent. So you can also call them and make reservations by phone or do it online.
So go ahead and look ahead on that now. Like you said, right now is high season. It's going to be busy. But come spring, things taper off just a little. Yeah,
Janet's and Francie's are open until mid-May. Section House closes the end of April. And usually April, it's a lot easier to find availability, although weekends still book well in advance. Actually, if you become a member of Summit Huts Association, which is pretty affordable, $25, that will allow you to get into a preseason lottery. Because if you want those popular weekends, you pretty much have to do it through the lottery system. And being a member of Summit Huts allows you a little leg up on the lottery process.
Word from the wise, tip from the experts.
Yeah.
And then, and last tip from you, Mike. What's your personal favorite hut? Do you have a favorite? Do you have one?
Well, yeah. Like they're all my favorites, of course. That's the official line. Each of the huts has its own charm, and not only with the Summit Huts system, but all of the huts out there. I think they all have something to offer. My personal favorite, and it's just because it's the first hut that I started to spend a lot of time at, was Janet's Cabin. And when I first started to get involved with Summit Huts, that's where I sort of learned my chops, so to speak. So it's got sentimental value, but all the huts have something unique to offer.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Janet's, there's always good snow somewhere in the hills around Janet's.
Yep.
Great. Mike Zobbe with Summit Huts coming in to talk about the newest hut in the system and the rest of the huts. Thanks again for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Absolutely. Phil Lindemann on Krystal 93.